I'm just going to click record and go.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Mike Rovin podcast.
Check this out.
There we go. Had to get the official intro going there. Welcome back to the Mike Rovin podcast. Back for another episode. Excited to be behind the microphone as always. Thank you to everybody who has been tuning in, checking out the podcast. I appreciate that. And all of your positive feedback is appreciated. It's exciting. It's evolving, I think, really nicely. So that's very cool. Don't forget the podcast is available here on YouTube on video. It's also available audio versions on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and through anchor.fm. You can go to my page on anchor.fm, which is a really cool podcast app, and it'll link you off to the other music services to go check out the podcast. So you can listen while you're driving or doing laundry, working around the house, or what have you. So hope everyone is doing well. It's been another wild and crazy week, but restrictions are starting to relax. Masks are starting to come off. Starting to get back to life and work again, which is exciting, and we're starting to see just in time for summer, which is awesome. So speaking of working, most of us spend a good chunk of our lives working, many of us for a boss or an employer or a company or corporation. Some make the brave choice to venture out and start their own business, whether that be because they have an entrepreneurial spirit or they're trying to fulfill a dream, or maybe raise money for a cause or a charity. And some start a business for all of those reasons. And my guest on the podcast today is Kyle Poissonnier. Did I get it right?
You always nail it, dude.
Nice.
Time.
Right.
Well, we've had practice too.
Exactly. That's true. We have
practice,
a little bit of practice. So Kyle started a clothing company a while ago called Catalyst for Change. And I believe, and you'll correct me if I'm a little bit off, that the clothing line was originally started to create custom apparel for schools to use for fundraiser events to start some charities, and things have evolved dramatically since then. So am I right, or what was the sort of the instigation for Catalyst for Change?
Oh God.
And thank you, by the way, for joining me.
It's so that is true. But it's been through so many incarnations, and I feel like it's always evolving, especially now, especially in the last year, where I think people had to kind of pivot to certain things. No, but it started out as a senior project for me at Husson in my entrepreneurship class, and as just an immature, very cocky, arrogant football player, I just thought that some people that I knew who were NFL players could help me launch a clothing brand. Looking back now, I don't regret anything I've ever done because it's all been an amazing learning experience. But my attitude at that time was just so ridiculous and so not realistic. And I moved to Boston and New York City right away, and right outside of Boston in Cape Cod with a friend of mine who I started the first incarnation with. And it was like probably the worst shirts you've ever seen in your life. There was no charitable aspect to it. It was just us trying to get them on famous people, basically, which is what everybody tries to do now on social media. And it's just, it just never works. Yeah. And then when I came back, maybe like a year or two before I met you to Maine in 2010, that's when I started being really lucky with people I knew, like Peter Bissell, who owns Bissell Brothers, who's a good friend of mine, but at the time he was a photographer. So he was shooting all my stuff, and it still was like just trying to get its legs, figuring out what it was. And then right around the time I think I met you, or we did the first podcast, it kind of morphed into, which I'm sure we'll get into, a lot of stuff for very hard topics, school fundraisers. And since 2013, 2014, it's just been like this breathing entity that just kind of goes in different directions if people push it that way. Our core values stay the same, all the fundraising and charity work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, when people say like, what's your clothes, how would you describe your clothing? I forever have been always trying to search for a way to explain it. And I still don't know how to explain it. It just kind of is what it is. As I'm even sitting here looking at all the different things we have in our store. I guess it's just a bunch of stuff that I like and people like, and then we try to make come to life. And through all of that, we try to make it something really positive and uplifting. And we try to give back as much as we absolutely can. So you were pretty close on how it kind of started, but I don't think the evolution of it will ever be over.
Right.
Right. It's just consistently evolving, and just the stuff that we get ourselves into as far as stuff that we put out that we never thought in a million years we would ever do. And then it ends up being a great thing. Because things just move so fast. They just do.
Did,
Um,
did you know early on in your life, even, early grade school days that, you kind of wanted to take an entrepreneurial route, or did you have a different route in life career wise that you wanted to take?
yeah, I always knew I wanted to do something creative. It's really weird to think about that stuff because I wasn't the best student. And it wasn't, I did try. My mom was a kindergarten teacher, so she really had us reading early and writing, young. But I remember, it was really weird. I never took to school. I never, and again, I always tell, especially when I talk to so many high schools and colleges about this, I'm not saying to not take school seriously, but to me, school is not set up for people who end up working for themselves. Like I was told all through school growing up that I was, I was a C student, like I could go to a community college, I can get into a trade, what have you. And even in my high school art classes, I did something on my Instagram the other day where, cause I screen print, the majority, I'm kind of stepping away from it now and other people are doing it. But for like the last 5 years, I've screen printed, 100,000 shirts for our sales and stuff. And,
Wow.
I never, I wasn't artistically inclined, I'm not musically inclined. But the thing that I always had that I developed later in my life was like just an obscene work ethic. And I learned that you can, if you're not great at something, the obscene work ethic can push you farther than if you're just uber talented. And that, so to get back to your original question, when I was a kid, yes, I did always I always tried to create my little businesses. I used to walk around the house, editing on a big VHS camcorder, like a television show that I wanted to produce when I was like 8 or 9,
Right.
which does play into what we do now because I'm always out in front of a camera doing things. But
Sure.
yeah, no, it's just that I always knew I wanted to do that. And I remember the hard conversations in high school when you meet with your guidance counselor and then, what do you want to do in college? And what do you want to do for the rest of your life? I never had an answer for that. I knew that I wanted it to be something in marketing, but the problem with me is that I only enjoy marketing this.
Huh.
When I had jobs early on and I had to, sell ad space for, for semi-pro baseball teams or whatever the hell it was.
Right.
I just couldn't get motivated to do it. My girlfriend and I talk about this all the time because she's a business owner too. She owns her own fitness studio and coaching and stuff. And if it's not our own thing, I don't know if that sounds like arrogant to say, but if it's not our own thing, maybe that makes us bad workers. I don't know. But if it's not our own thing, I can't lie. I can't be a salesman and try to sell you something that I don't absolutely love.
Right.
So I'm happy that it gets to be this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah. So you get into college and then you start taking business classes and you get into an entrepreneurial class and you decide, well, my business idea will be, we'll make some t-shirts to like try to.
See, that was the last semester though. So I talk about this openly and I probably talked about it the first time on your, even when I met you, I was still in that phase where I was trying to skip all these steps. So like all through college, football was a big thing for me. Like I was a really good football player, left Husson for a little bit, went up to a D1 school, played there for a little bit, came back to Husson. Never once thought about what I was going to do after that. All I cared about was just being the football player. And that's all I knew.
Okay.
So then when that ended and I had my last semester at Husson, it was like, oh, okay, this is really getting real now. I have to think about what I'm doing after college. But it's so funny because college, the first 1 and 2 years, you're taking all these, required classes that you really don't have an interest in at all.
Sure.
And it was so funny. My GPA suffered, and probably due to the fact too that all I cared about was just going out and playing football, just stupidly. And my last year, when all that kind of came to an end, I was 22. I had entrepreneurship classes, I had marketing classes, stuff that like interested me. And it was so funny because I ended up graduating with a 3.98 or almost a perfect 4.0, which is hilarious because it's proof that if you're taking classes with things that truly interest you, it's really not hard at all. You apply yourself because you like those classes.
Sure.
And then the last class was entrepreneurship, and it was just create a fake business, create the whole business plan, big stack, a big 3-ring binder. And I had a buddy at the time who I played football with at Albany. And we were like, oh, we know all these guys who went to the NFL. Like, let's just start a clothing company and give them all these shirts. That was the beginning of it, literally.
Right.
And that's how it started. And then him and I did it for a while. He wanted to get he got real jobs.
Yeah. Right.
I was like, I'll take it. And I took it. And him and I are still friends to this day. And he's a football coach in Cape Cod, just a great guy. And
nice.
And, I'm the one who stupidly took it, and not stupidly. I just, most people, 99% of people would have been like, this is not going to work. And that's why you see so many people start clothing businesses, because it's so easy to start it now.
Right.
You get your, you go on LegalZoom, you get your DBA, your LLC, whatever it might be. You make an Instagram or a Facebook, and there you are, you're a business owner.
Right.
Making it last is harder.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
I see people come out for the first 6 months, a year, and then they get into a year of it and they're like, I don't know what to do now, So I just think through years of time, I just being around and being in people's hindsight of all this stuff that I was doing. Eventually it kind of all culminated around year 8. And that's when I started doing it full time.
Wow.
And I've been doing it full time for about 4 or 5 years now.
That's a big gap though. I mean, 8 years.
It's a super huge gap, but also too, it was because I wasn't working hard. Like I say that all the time to people. Like I was not working hard the first 5, 6, 7 years. I was just like all these young kids you see on social media now that put like CEO at, entrepreneur at, like I just wanted people to see me out. I wanted to do the press. I wanted to do these interviews and hope that would build the brand. But I rarely do this stuff now. And we're busy. We're the busiest, doing the best, growing the fastest we've ever grown in the last year. And I do rarely any of these. So I had to get out of my own way and kind of be like, well, I need to work and I need to let the people, build the brand. And that's what ended up working. And now it's one of those things where it's like, we just did some mental health awareness shirts last week. And I openly kind of talked about the stress and pressure that I'm under just daily, and what I've kind of felt this last year, when I haven't really talked about how I'm feeling this last year, because we kind of just had to go full speed ahead when everything kind of happened last year with COVID.
Sure.
So I was feeling a lot of pressure. I just talked about that. It was like, we got a mailing list of, 10,000 people, and we have, I think, 11,000 people on each social, and we reach like 40,000 people a month. And
nice.
Still haven't got back to all the mess, like the people, the conversations. It's more like a family now. It's like a family of people that all, support and purchase our stuff and donate and give it to other people. And
it's a big community.
Yeah. So it takes a while, and I always say, like, probably anybody else, it should take about 2 to 3 years to get to where I got by year 8. Right. But again, I can't say that because I don't know. I wouldn't change a thing, and also at the time there was all these other things at play, like, Facebook and Instagram weren't a thing when I started.
Right.
Early on, I always tell people 2008 to 2011, my goal was to get us carried in a store. Right. None of this stuff on social media. So like it hit at the right time, like even like this weekend, we had the store open. Store was busy, but the store accounts for like 5% of our revenue per year. So the online is just what it will always be and what it will be going forward. Right. But it's so funny. In the last couple of years, we've had, offers to go into pretty big national chains. And it's just, there's no appeal to doing that anymore, especially with our brand. Like, they're not going to explain it the right way. They're going to overprice it. They're not going to, some kid in Ohio is not going to be able to explain to somebody what our shirts mean, or why would he care enough to explain like this 30-second thing about who we are to someone who's just trying to buy a shirt in Olympia. Right. So like, it's just not, so it's just so funny how that flipped in 10 years of me doing this, where it went from being like, I need to be in every store to we don't need to be in any stores. It's all about this community. We can exist right on your phone. And it's just so crazy. Like one in 60 people now by numbers have a Catalyst shirt in Maine, every state, every continent. It's awesome. Yeah, we're shipping to multiple different countries next week. So it just takes time. I'm so happy that I did all of the stuff. I still make mistakes, but I'm so happy that I made so many mistakes. Right. Problem now is like, I think people, all they want to do is avoid the mistakes. They want to avoid looking bad. I mean, I had colossal failures, colossal embarrassment. How we learn and grow. It's how we grow. Yeah. And if you don't have that, it's like when people see a little bit of a chink in an armor or something like that, or they something doesn't perform like how they want it to be, they just kind of give up. And it's like, you just have to keep going. You know what I mean? Like that's the biggest thing that we try to tell people. I try to tell people when I talk to people. Just keep going. Well, I had a good friend of mine who you might remember, Homie JR, who used to be a DJ on JBQ back in those days. Mm-hmm. And, he's been
successfully video branding, vlogging, and, video podcasting for a while. And, I was asking him, how do you succeed at that when there can be so many challenges? And, just to your point, consistency, even though there's failures, even though there's videos with 2 views, you just keep making them, you stay consistent, and eventually you nail one and things blow up. So was it just, if I'm not mistaken, so Be the Catalyst or Catalyst for Change was the first kind of line that started to snowball, but then was it the Just a Kid from Maine was the shirt that came out? And is that really the thing that exploded everything from there? And how did that come about?
Yeah. The first thing that we did that was really big was the first suicide awareness and prevention hoodie. And that was the fall of 2013 or 14. And that was, again, something very personal that if you would ask me 5 years earlier if I'd be putting out something like that, talking about my struggles with depression, as opposed to 2008 Kyle, who was just sending awful T-shirts to my friends,
players, right?
It didn't even relate. But that's when I saw that there was this connection or thing that was missing in clothing, where you don't need to have some like beautiful woman or like, godlike guy modeling a shirt in like extra medium to like,
right,
relate to people. Like, you can put out stuff that raises money and starts a conversation. So that was kind of the big thing. We got a lot of press around that time. And it was so funny too, because even at that time, 2013, 2014, there was still a lot of news people that would not touch it.
Wow.
There was still this weird hush hush thing about like, don't talk about suicide, don't talk about mental health. So we kind of like rose a little bit in that. And then we rebranded Be the Catalyst with a K to CFC Wear in 2016. And I remember it was in my mind, it was my last chance to, because I had been doing it at that point for 8 years.
Right.
I remember I was bartending, I was waiting tables, I was doing, charity, like wedding catering and things like that, just to like have money to pay bills, but not spending any money on this. And I took off like 4 or 5 months. And I wrote everything in a book of what I wanted the brand to finally be. Because at that point I felt like, all right, I've been doing this for 8 years, 7 years. I don't need to like continue. I looked at all the stuff I did, all the stuff that worked. How was I still not doing this full time? And I was like, all right, do everything you want to do. Because if it doesn't work, this is what, this is you could say that you tried everything you wanted.
Right.
Didn't do anything for like 5 months, like November to April into 2015 and 2016. Went to Hawaii with a buddy, and really took a lot of time there to really think about and put the final touches on what I wanted it to be. Came back and launched CFC Wear. And then a couple months later, Just a Kid from Maine was a shirt idea that I had for a while. And that, yes, was the thing that like Bissell Brothers Substance, it's our flagship thing.
Right.
That just went, I've never seen something go so viral in my life. I mean, we made so many of those shirts. They went everywhere. They went, anybody who was ever a Mainer who lived away or people who live there now wanted that.
They're everywhere.
But I knew at that moment, I said, okay, we went from having 200 people visit our website a month to 100,000. So it's like, with this chance, I have to continue to expand what we do.
Right.
And we have 35 different lines, and
wow.
we are always doing different things, always doing different things. And the cool part is that Just a Kid from Maine is now like a novelty thing. Like, people still buy it.
Yeah.
People buy whatever we put out new is what people buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they like the brand more than that thing.
Right.
So I just knew at that moment that with that many people looking at us, we had to deliver. And about 2 months later, I was very scary. I was like, well, okay, I don't need to work a side job anymore. And, brought on some help and then more help. And now we have two full-time employees and one part-time. So it's 4 of us.
Nice.
And probably we'll hire another person around Christmas time again. And it's great. It's such a proud thing for me to be like, yeah, these people are paid well. They have health insurance. They have benefits. It's just, I never thought that I could generate enough revenue through this to do that.
To be an actual employer. Yeah. To be a boss.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I always thought it would just be me sitting in a room.
Right. How do you, that's a pivotal moment. It's like a band who has this awesome hit song. You have this flash in the pan, Just a Kid from Maine, the t-shirt blows up. I mean, you're selling, you've got this massive audience. Yeah. Then now there's huge pressure of like not to be a one-hit wonder. How do you?
Dude, you just nailed it. That's where a lot of my stress comes from. Like, like this weekend, we do a big launch every month. We're always open, but we come out with like 10 or 12 new things. Like it's like unheard of. Like no brand does this. Like we just did a design contest that closed on Tuesday night that had 4,000 votes of fan submitted and customer submitted art. By Wednesday night, they were shot. By Thursday morning, they were posted.
Wow.
And they went on sale Friday, and they're a fundraiser for a woman who designed it, who's got a rare type of cancer. I believe it's called sarcoma cancer. Okay. And it's a really great design. And we're donating like $5 a shirt per shirt that sells. And right now it's like one of the most sold shirts through the weekend.
Very cool.
So it's like, yeah, the pressure comes from always like, it's really fun for about 2 days when you see all of your hard work for building something come to life. Everything from making the designs in Illustrator, printing them, we hand print them, stitching them, whatever. We go, we shoot, we do the photos, we edit the photos, we get the website ready, we get the social media ready. And then you go, okay, like hopefully people like this complete package. And then when you see that they respond to it and it's a great sale or a great release, you then go on Monday, you still come back in here and you go, okay,
time for the next thing.
Let's get ready to package all this. Like Monday morning, we're coming in here and it's like, all right, Alex will get to work. He'll start packing hundreds of packages. I'll start getting the Tattooed Manor stuff ready. We're doing another Tattooed Manor series on Friday. And then the next Monday we'll come in and we'll start planning the Father's Day stuff. And then the next, it's just all like, so there's always this weird pressure of like, what's next? Cause I don't ever feel like I can let up. I always feel like if I let up, it will all go away.
And someone else may jump in and, capitalize or something, or
it's not so much that, because I honestly don't pay attention to what anybody else does.
Yep.
And my thing is always, if you work hard and you're doing things for the right reason, there is room for absolutely everybody to do it. Every line of work, there's enough room for everybody.
Yeah.
For me, it's just, I don't ever want to go back to the place again where nothing worked and people don't come, and it's like, I tell people all the time, it took me 8 months to sell a shirt. And now, the other night, as soon as we turned on the website at midnight, we sold, 80. So it's
like right away,
5 minutes. And it's like, okay, like I remember that time, and that makes me appreciate this time because it took so long, like I just had my 36th birthday Thursday.
Nice.
And I started doing this when I was 22, 23. So, it's really like fulfilling, and it feels really nice now to be like, okay, like this is what I'm cementing for myself, and this is what I want to do. This is what I am doing for a living.
Right.
And it's fun to think about what's next and what's after that. But there is also like a really big, immense pressure, because in the beginning, when you start, it's all really fun because people want to support you.
Right.
But it's like 3 or 4, 5, 6 months, a year down the road where you really, that's when the rubber meets the road as far as
when the hard work kicks in.
Yeah, what you really want to do, and like you said, the one-hit wonder thing. I didn't want to be that, but also too, it's so funny. There's still people to this day that will find us new.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, how long you guys been in business? 3 months? And it's like,
not so much. Yeah.
So it's like, you just constantly have to remember that there's so many people who don't know you, and you always have to be putting on a great performance, because if you're not, you only have a little bit of time. You have what do you have, a second while people are browsing social media to catch someone's attention.
Yeah, and hang on to it.
Yeah. So it's just that's kind of the world we live in now.
I want to touch on that a little bit too for a second, because it's a good point. Talking to Homie last week, I mean, when I met him, same time that I met you around in 2011, 12, he was vlogging and doing these video podcasts before anybody was. And now seemingly every single person on the planet has a blog, podcast, live stream, Snapchat, whatever. It does seem to me as though, I mean, you were making apparel that long ago. Now, to me, it seems like there's so many boutique clothing lines. Like you say, everyone kind of has a clothing line now, which is cool. I mean, it's great because, like you say, there's all these different things and they're all unique in their own way. Mm-hmm. But it definitely, when I'm scrolling, there's so many clothing lines. Yours, how do you feel about that, and how do you continue to kind of stand out amongst all this saturation in the marketplace now?
Because we're the only catalyst.
Yeah.
There's nothing like us. And that's the key. So like when people say to me, I've had every year, probably 10 to 20 people will come here and they'll be like, hey, can I borrow you for 30 minutes of your time? And like, I want to start a clothing company. And I start talking. And when I start talking, I just poof, poof, poof. And they see all this stuff and they see our setup and they see the prints and they see how much work goes into like what we do. And I think a lot of people don't think it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
To get it to the point where you see this picture, that's just the thing that, whatever. But I think people are tribal and they want to connect to a band, a brand. That's my beer. That's my clothing brand. That's my whatever.
Right.
I think it's one of those things where we have so many people we're their brand that, I mean, there are people who spend like $5,000 a year on our website. Like they buy every single thing we put out.
I want to buy everything you put out for sure.
And you know what? It's not even like the people who came in yesterday too. The woman who designed the Just Live design. I mean, her and her husband, never met them. They live about 45 minutes north of here. They've been customers since like 2016.
Yeah.
Just met them. They submitted a design. It's going to raise money for the EHE Foundation for sarcoma. And it's like, oh, they were customers no matter what. And I didn't even know they existed. And I got to meet them. And I feel like so many of these brands online, you don't know the people.
Right.
Like I said the other day in our post, it was hard for me to post that. I had never posted publicly in the last probably 9 years about what I, battle with anxiety and depression. And it was like this giant hug from everybody back. I mean, you go through all these other brands thing, and I'm not saying that they should do that if they're not feeling that, obviously, but like I feel comfortable in doing it and they feel comfortable giving it back to me.
Yeah.
And, even last year, even with COVID, we still were able to donate $17,000 to multiple charities.
Wow. That's awesome.
No other brand is doing that.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody like us. And that is what I try to tell people when they come in here is don't look at what I'm doing. Like look at maybe the technical aspects,
right?
But you're you,
right.
Whatever, you have something unique. You have a unique idea. What I see with a lot of brands is they come out, they might be inspired by us, or they might like want to take some of the things that we do and kind of try to do it. Yep. And they want that instant success.
Right.
It's not how it works.
It took you 8 years before you started to sell a bunch of shirts.
You have a design, if you have an idea, if you have a brand, just consistency every single day. One day might be amazing. The next day, 20 things. I mean, that happens to me all the time. There might be a week where nothing goes wrong, and then 3 weeks where everything goes wrong.
Yeah.
And you as a business owner, it's your decision every day to react to that accordingly and continue to keep pushing.
Right.
That's half of the battle. I don't give a shit. Sorry if I'm swearing.
It's all good.
What our numbers are. Like when I see other brands start, they might have out of the gate 20, 30, 40, 50,000 followers, whatever. Scott Bauman and I talk about this all the time. He just launched the brand.
Yeah.
It's not about the numbers anymore. It's about engagement.
Yep.
So a lot of people will fluff their numbers by buying their followers, buying their comments, all this stuff.
Sure.
We have 11.2 thousand followers on our Instagram. We sell triple to quadruple that amount in shirts every year.
Wow.
So that tells me that they're buying multiples. They're telling people they're actually enjoying it. It doesn't matter if you have 40,000 fans. If they're not engaged or invested in what you're doing, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So to answer your question, like I have no idea what's going on anywhere else. People will send me stuff all the time, and we'll have people try to rip off our designs. And if we really think it's infringing on stuff, we'll take care of it, which we've done a couple of times, especially with just a kid. I mean, there have been people who we own that. So there's been times where people have just, completely ripped that design off, and we have to, take care of it.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm always like, man, I don't follow. I mean, I'm so busy. You should never, if you're doing well in whatever you're doing, you can be inspired by other people that are in the same line of work.
Right.
But you never truly care about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Be inspired by it. But if you have time to take up, if someone's having, space in your head and they're living there rent free about what they're doing, your business won't succeed. You have to stay focused on what you're doing and keep it right in between those two lanes and just keep going. If you're looking, oh, look at this person, they're doing this and it's like, Pete and I talk about this all the time. I mean, Pete Bissell, Bissell Brothers, say what you want to say about them. They were the first big time craft brewery next to Allagash, when they came out. And I saw the whole thing. I've been Pete's friend for 15, 16 years. Yep. Now everybody wants to be a craft brewery and everybody wants to be like Bissell. Yeah. And Pete is still Bissell Brothers, and Bissell Brothers still is one of the top 3 in Maine.
Yep.
and around the world, they have a huge following. And it's like, they could have easily been like, oh, look at this brewery. They're trying to be us. Like, they don't care.
Right. Just keep doing their thing.
It's up to them to keep doing well because people are smart.
Right.
People, if they go in there and their stuff is not tasting good, it's not looking good, the customer service sucks, they're going somewhere else.
Right. Right.
So it's on you to just be a beast within your business and just focus on you and just keep going. And then when the time comes when you do get a break, you do get a mention, you do get a lot of views, a lot of whatever, you're ready for it. That was my problem early on. I wasn't ready for anything early on. So when I was going on your show and I was on Fox News and I was on MSNBC and fucking TED Talks, I wasn't ready for any of it. Because when people went to go to the website, like, what is this shit? You know? Now if that happened, they'd be like, oh, this is really great. You know, like, so you have to be ready when that stuff comes, you know?
Sure. I mean, you know, and it can be discouraging. I mean, I wanted to get into doing podcasting or what was internet radio was like 10, 12 years ago.
Yep.
And at that time, just too much stuff going on in life and it didn't happen. And then as I wanted to really get into podcasting, it was like everyone was having a podcast and it was like, well, maybe I shouldn't do it now. So it can be discouraging, but you're right. You find your lane and then you just stay in it. You know, you just go for it and you say, forget what everybody else is doing. I have a thing that I can do. Yep. You know, and then there's room.
It's the same, man. I'm telling you, and even with the podcasting too, I got to give you so much credit for that because yes, everybody does have a podcast now. I even have one that I started like last January before COVID started, and I used to do it every week. Yeah. And then I got to about week 15, and I was like, "This is a lot of work."
It is a lot of work.
It was just me riffing. It was like a comedy podcast, and then I didn't do it at all through COVID, and then I came back in the fall or in the spring and did some. And now I literally just treat it as this thing that like, I just do once in a while. If I happen to have time, an hour, I'll do it. And then there's like post editing it and throwing in sound clips and stuff. And it's just like, so problem a lot of people with podcasts is people will get to like episode 2, 3, 4, 5 of podcasts and then just
bail out.
Because then I just think people think when they watch a video podcast, like they think right now, like we're like, hey, you want to do this? And we just hop on like, and it's just, that's not how it works. Like everything, there's a setup, there's a thing, there's a post-production, there's the next week and the next week and the next week.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And people, I think, just don't think that's how it's going to be. And then when they realize that it is still a job, that's when they're kind of like, oh, I'm out. So yeah, there's a lot of podcasts, but every single successful podcaster I've ever spoken to says it's literally just consistency.
That's right. Exactly.
This for 3 years with nothing. And then you can go back to like, even people who have billions of followers on Instagram or YouTube, go back to their first video on YouTube and it has like 33 views. And it's like, oh, look, they did all of this. No one's even going back to those. But then like their most recent video has 1 million views. So it's like
somehow it just hits.
Yeah, just consistency is the thing that and especially now, like people just don't, because everything's so easy. I mean, Jesus, I mean, like how easy has cell phones made our lives? I mean, it's just swipe to shop, do this. It's like, I'm happy that I didn't come up. It would have even been a longer problem for me because I was so interested in jumping ahead and skipping steps. Right. And then I went back and was like, no, I'm going to print everything myself. I'm going to do the website. I'm going to do the marketing. I'm going to learn all the aspects of this business to make it run well and then work really hard at it. When I went back and did that, that's when greater successes came. But when I was trying to just jump ahead and jump ahead and jump ahead, I was jumping back because I couldn't, you can't do that. You just can't, but it's tempting. It's tempting. I mean, if you have $50 lying around and you're a kid and you want to get a logo designed by somebody and you want to digitally mock up a shirt and buy your followers, all of a sudden you're somebody who has a brand who's got 50,000 bot followers and you're like, look at my clothing brand. It's like, that's just not
sustainable.
It's not sustainable, but it's, you're not making a living. Right. I mean, if you want the pats on the back from your buddies, cool. Right. But if you want to make a living, you actually have to work. Absolutely.
Well, and to your point, it could be very easy with these podcasts to get hung up on numbers, but I'm like, you know what, this isn't why I do this. What the instigation for me to just do this was because I wanted to, this is something I want to do. This is for me. So I'm not going to be attached to how many views or how many plays it has. We're just going to do it and then let it go.
That's the right reason to start though.
Yeah.
If you're doing it because you love it, people will naturally come to you because they like some things that you like. Right. Our stuff, I mean, that's what I like so much about Catalyst is like, I can do stuff for really bright, fun tie-dye stuff for people who just want a fun tie-dye shirt. Yeah. But then I also can do shirts that say like the one you have on, the Keep Going one, and there's a story behind that. And there's a reason you bought that. And then I can do some fishing stuff because I like the fishing stuff. And there's people who follow us just for the fishing stuff.
Mhm.
It's like, you can do all these things, and these are all things that I like. And there will be people who see it and like that aspect of it and respond to it.
Right.
The minute you lose that, and the minute you just do it because you're doing it for the numbers or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
that's when things can get a little tricky.
Right. It gets away from your original vision. There's kind of been this overarching theme on the podcast of just overcoming adversity and struggles and challenges in life, personally, professionally, what have you. It's kind of been interesting how everyone I've had on the podcast so far has had some pretty cool stories, but your clothing lines, I mean, your whole brand is really a lot of it, at least of the earlier and some of, the original product lines are all about overcoming between strength and warrior and keep going and, all those different things. So I can imagine the stories you hear and how that affects you on the daily basis. And then it's kind of part B of that. It's like, what were you've already talked a little bit about the depression, the anxiety, what were your humble beginnings and challenges to overcome? And did that drive you to do this? Does that drive you?
Yeah, it did. Well, so the first part about hearing stories, it's very hard. But I feel like it makes us who we are, like we do the warrior stories. People write to us every day with a story. And to me, it puts in perspective how lucky most people are with the things they go through.
Right.
And we have taken photos of people who have passed away. We have a great relationship with a couple who lives up north, a woman, we're doing a shirt for her next month. It's a design she wants because she doesn't think she's going to make it through the summer.
Wow.
There's a woman, the woman I keep referencing, Kim, who just came in, who we just met, who did she's one of 2 people in Maine who have this rare cancer, and maybe like a few thousand around the world.
Oh man.
It's been a tough year.
Yeah.
And they come in because they like what we do. So it's like, goddamn, like there's people who like what we do and appreciate the fundraising aspect, and she was like, oh, I'm going to donate my money to EHE. And I go, okay, well, if you're donating your winnings for winning the contest, I'm going to donate money too.
Nice.
And you just try to do as much as you can.
Yeah.
And try to help and give back. The proudest I am of anything I've done in my career is the fact that people feel comfortable enough to come in here and be completely naked in front of a camera, emotionally,
right,
naked,
yeah,
and tell a really hard story. I mean, there have been some intense stories that we have gotten in here, and we're accepting of everybody, and we love everybody, and it's great because some people might not even know this side of our business. But they do know that when they buy a shirt that just has a wave on it with the main wave or whatever, they know that they feel good about doing their part, that some of that money is going to an array of organizations.
Yeah.
So that is ultimately my proudest thing, is that we've donated probably 60,000 in the last 3 or 4 years. And just beyond the money number, the conversation is the conversation. The talking about tough stuff, that's just as important.
Yeah.
I mean, we get so many emails from people that gift the shirt that you have on, or gift some of our suicide awareness stuff to people that are struggling. And they wear it for chemo treatments, or they wear it to counseling, or, it's just, that's what life is. That's what life is all about. Yeah. Everything else is nothing. That is, as long as I have enough time in my life to do it, I want to just try to help people feel better.
And it has meaning, it has meaning.
And I feel like I owe it to people now, because the first 5 and 6 years, I wasn't doing that. It was all about me. It was all about trying to get rich quick. It was all of that stuff. Right. So I consistently feel now like I have to keep doing this to make up for my immature stupidity early on. So that's number 1.
Good karma.
Yeah. Number 2, with my stuff, the reason why I had so many problems is because I never let anybody in, and I never showed my emotional side when I started. And I was the football player and the jock, and nobody ever assumed anything was wrong. Always laughing, always outgoing. And, 2012, 2013, I lost my grandfather, who was basically my father figure. I lost my best friend from college, Big Lou, to a heart attack.
Wow.
Lost my grandmother a year later. My business was struggling. I was in like a really bad spot.
Sure. Yeah.
And the saddest part to me was that not many people assumed it or reached out. And people will say, well, like, oh man, like, why did none of your friends reach out? It's like, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
I never said
They
anything.
didn't know. Yeah.
Not to mention too, I always acted like I was tough and I couldn't talk about things. So why would they assume that?
Yeah.
And that kind of was like, well, damn, like, I wonder if there's other people who feel this way. And that's where the first suicide awareness hoodie came from. And it turns out a lot of people feel this way.
Right.
That's why every year since, and now twice a year, we talk about this. I tell people, like, people think that when you get to a certain level of your business, like even Scott and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago, they think that like you're immune to feeling things.
Right.
Well, everything's good. You should be happy.
Right.
Just 2 weeks ago, I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. Everything that I never thought I could have, I have. I have a great relationship. COVID things are kind of going away. The store is great. I never thought it would operate at this level. What the hell do I have to be depressed about? And I couldn't put my finger on it.
Sure.
Couldn't.
You're a human being.
Couldn't do it. And I just thought, I was like, oh, it's probably because this last year I've sat here and listened to everything that's come in from people about their struggling, and I haven't been able to really say anything.
Right.
So I think that was weighing on me. I think just stress of work was weighing on me. And I just publicly was like, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. That goes hand in hand with suicide prevention and awareness.
Yeah.
Do some shirts. And it was a nice reminder again. It's like, oh yeah, these people are here. They remember this. And we had hundreds of messages from people who were like, yep, I feel the same. I feel the same. I feel the same.
It's awesome.
And it was therapeutic for me. I was so happy that happened because it was so therapeutic for me. So I treated it as like therapy for me.
Yeah.
Conversations with total strangers. And again, we raised another couple $1,000s for AFSP Maine. And it's just like, okay, like this is what it is, but it's not, you're not immune to, especially now, like if anybody pretends like this last year hasn't somewhat affected them in some way.
Oh man.
You have
yeah.
Know that everybody feels the same. I'm not immune to it. I think people look at me and they think that I'm just like this big burly guy. And like, I don't, especially for the first time, they assume that I just don't feel like that.
Right.
I mean, it was so bad. Like 2 weeks ago, I was just like tired from how stressed and depressed I was. Just tired. I was just, oh my God. Like, and I tried to dissect it and talk about it. And then I put it out publicly just to say that I was going to do a bunch of my favorite sayings on shirts for Mental Health Awareness Month. And people responded, and people,
they gave back to you. Oop, froze up a little bit. There we go.
Yeah, and so that's the most important aspect of what we do. We can still have fun and do the fun shirts. I mean, there's a lot of shirts that mean nothing that we sell in here.
Yeah,
they all still donate money.
Yeah.
The stuff that we're talking about now, that's warrior strength. Keep going. Refuse to sink. Like those are my babies. I love those ones. Those are just like, they're so simple but so powerful.
Yeah.
Where they can be interpreted by anybody to mean whatever they want for them.
Right. Well, and like you say too, it does get harder to have, or at least to be perceived as having human emotion when you reach a level of success or celebrity or notoriety. It's like, they just, like you say, they just see the shirt, the clothing. They don't see all of the work that goes on behind it. Same with the podcast. You only see the 45-minute podcast, not all the work that happens. And so you're right. There's like this judgment that can happen of like, why would you ever be depressed about anything? Things are great. You have all these clothes coming out there, but you're like, I'm a person too. The pressure that you must have to continue this thing going, to maintain success, to keep your employees, to keep your audience,
that's a big thing. And I always say to my girlfriend, I say, early on, I wanted to be famous and not run a business. And now all I want to do is run a business, and I want no one to know where I am. I want no one to know anything about me. I post like my personal social. I posted on Facebook twice this entire year. I don't go on Facebook anymore. It's a really toxic place, I think, especially now.
Yeah.
I do our Catalyst stuff and then I get out.
Yeah.
And then Instagram, my personal Instagram, I just treat it as like a comedy reel. Like I just post the stupidest photos. We don't
fun
too much about our lives. You don't need to tell everybody what you're doing 24/7. And it's so funny because now I'm so far removed from that old ego maniac that I used to be, or person that just wanted to be known.
Yeah.
That's why I just don't, that's like, I don't know. I just feel like it was like imposter syndrome too. Like I don't want to make people think that it's all about me.
Right.
I want the brand to breathe on its own.
Yeah.
But it's just weird. Yeah. I don't, but the thing is, I was even wrong in even thinking that. Because when I did say that a couple of weeks ago, talked about my struggles over the past month, people were like, nope, we're here for you. We got you. Like, it's just not people. I think I built that up in my own head that I wasn't able to speak on that.
Right.
But then I forget, okay, we got these 20, 30,000 people that just like,
That's your family.
They're here for a reason. I didn't invite them to come like our page, like
Yeah.
they're here for a reason. You shouldn't feel that way.
Well, and one of the things I love about this clothing and why I wear so much of it too is because it does start that conversation. I've never, like you, I'm not someone that really wore my heart on my sleeve. It was always about everyone else and never about me.
Mm-hmm.
When I wear the shirt that says keep going or strength or warrior, people say stuff to me. I'm in a store, I'm standing in line. It's not like, hey, cool shirt. It's like, that's a really cool shirt. What does that mean? And then I could just, I can sort of simply say, well, it's a shirt, proceeds benefit, mental health and suicide awareness. But it also, these clothes stimulate conversation. It's an opportunity for me to talk about my struggles. Mm-hmm. And then it's really created some really deep and cool conversations and interactions with people randomly that may not have normally had, which, I got to think that happens everywhere. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's like the second biggest thing I hear is the conversations that happen because of it. And even stuff that's simple, like just Kid from Maine. I had a buddy I played football with in college yesterday who wrote to me while the store was open, and he was wearing just Kid from Maine shirt in Bar Harbor, I think, or Booth Bay or something. And he was saying that him and his wife like carry business cards with them, and they let people know, like when they asked. He said he had like 5 people ask him where he got it, but also too, like, even if that's not the conversation about the Keep Going shirt, for instance, like they'll still find out, they'll still get that, they'll still feel that that's still what we do when they get there.
Sure. Yeah.
They'll discover other things. So yeah, I think the conversation part, and it's also weird too, because we live in such a digital age, and you think like, oh, marketing doesn't exist word of mouth anymore. It absolutely does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go out a lot. I just don't. I like to fish. I like to be home. So, but when I do go out, it's really funny because I think I forget how many people buy our stuff. And if I go out, usually about 50-50. Every other time, I always see somebody wearing one of our shirts.
Mm-hmm.
And I get reminded. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, there are people that buy them. You know what I mean? And they like it. And because it's so easy to think, especially this past year where most of us have just been locked in our offices or our houses. Like, it's easy to forget that like people support you and buy your stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you see it out in the wild. I still feel like that's not real.
Right.
I still feel like, oh, this must be just somebody that knows me, that knows somebody. And it's like, but then you queue up like the numbers and you're like, okay, let's look at everybody who bought a shirt and let's look at like where all they went. And it's insane to look at it. Yeah. So it still feels, I definitely do struggle from imposter syndrome too. I was talking with a buddy of mine as a videographer the other day about this. And I don't know why I have that. It's really weird. I shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people who run businesses feel that way too.
It does. It keeps you humble. It certainly keeps you humble, right? Because as soon as you get ahead of yourself or your head gets too big, like you say, that's kind of when you get away from your original intention for doing this in the first place.
Yeah. And I also think too, maybe for me, I used to be an imposter. So I think for me, I think the meshing of when it became a real thing, I'm like chased by this idea of like ever being that again. So so I think it's a good thing. And I'm a firm believer that if you are doing your thing and you're doing a good job, you don't have to talk about it.
Right.
Nor do you want to talk about it. But if you're out there telling everybody that you're the man and you're just doing the Kanye West kind of or Conor McGregor lane of marketing in social media, where you're just Muhammad Ali, where you're just telling everybody you're the greatest. Yep. How many times has that ever panned out for anybody? Like 3 people in the history of time that call the shot and actually do it.
Yep. And like you say about social media, that's that whole toxic nature of I find those that post continuously are trying to make up for something. And, it's like, I'm trying to make myself look awesome and look happy, but I'm really not. And I
some
think
of the most successful people I know don't even have social media.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit here and say it's not our lifeblood. I have a love-hate with it because I think the internet and social media is very toxic and sometimes very, very bad and damaging. But then again,
it'd be great for business.
It's great for business, but it's great for these great conversations. And I think it's more or less like the company you keep on your social media. Like
Yep.
I'll log into Facebook and that's 15 years of friend requests. So I see all this garbage.
Yeah.
But on the Catalyst page, it's like we follow like a few hundred people. We got our family on there. They're all supportive. They're all nice. If something negative happens to come through, I love clapping back at people.
Right.
Like the tattoo shirt that just came out a few weeks ago. Ain't no room for that on our page. Like if you want to go do that, go somewhere else and spew your shit.
Yeah.
But no, so I have a love hate with it. It's very odd. I really dislike it most of the times. And then other times I love it because it's just like, it just creates such a fun family conversation.
Right. When used appropriately,
Yeah, but it's hard, man. It's so like, Like we have a couple guys that I have two of my closest friends and a guy who works for us full time in here doesn't even have it. And I'm like, I'm so jealous of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you don't give a shit, so, but then there's me who like, on my personal social media, I don't care what I post. It's just me being stupid.
Yeah,
I don't try to gain followers. I don't try to like, whatever. I just post the things I like.
And that's what it should be.
Yeah. And I see so many people that are just, like, it's really weird. They're trying to be like a small celebrity version of themselves. And it's just like, you don't want that.
Right.
I've had a few friends in my life that have been like pretty well-known people, and I've been around them in social settings. You don't want that.
Right.
It is, you never alone. You're never not being watched. It's not a life you want. I don't understand why people think that's a life you want. I just can't. I blame the Kardashians, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like people everybody's a influencer.
Yeah, exactly. Where do you see the brand going or the company going over the course of the next few years? You just kind of let it evolve and see.
Yeah, I stopped. People, that's like a typical business question, and I stopped like trying to project and predict because it's like we don't ever plan too far ahead.
Yeah.
And so, like for instance, like last March. Now, if we were like every other clothing company, we would have had our entire year planned all the way through Christmas time. If we would have done that, we would have been screwed.
Right.
We were able to like spin on a dime, see what clothing was still available because a lot of warehouses shut down, do very specific shirts. And then when the mask mandate came down, we were able to, through our supplier, get these masks that were made out of, t-shirt cotton or hoodie cotton. And then people started producing more masks. And I think we sold like 5,000 or 6,000 face covers like in a week. We sold, we donated like 1,000. People wrote to us and like, I don't have $5. We'd be like, just give us your address.
Right.
So we were able to do that.
Yeah.
We were able to do that, but it was like, some of these brands, like you can't, dude, some of the things that we sell the most of are things that I am like on a Tuesday night of a release week, I'll be in my shower and I'll just be like, we should probably, and do it. And I'm like, let me just take a shot.
Right.
And it goes crazy. So it's like, you just have to listen, watch what people are buying, look at the results and be like, all right, so let's scrap that. That did not do well. Let's go to the next thing.
Right.
So to answer your question, my goal is to continue to just have a very happily creative time in here and make sure that my employees continually get paid more, taken care of well, make sure they're happy. We keep donating as much money as we can and just keep having a good time. And the byproduct of that will be growth. I don't sit there and go, wow, I want to be $500,000 up more in a year. And like, you can't predict anything, like if you would have told me that we'd double our revenue in 2020 over 2019 because of a global pandemic, I would have been like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
And then while a lot of businesses closed, we had multiple businesses in our mill complex, close up. So it was a very weird year. And then even this year, we're off to like a raucous pace.
Yeah.
Like, there has been no room. This is the first Sunday, I think in probably 2 or 3 months where I haven't been in here doing like 6 or 7 hours of extra work.
It's crazy.
So it's like, okay, like cool. Like we're busy, like what's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So,
and you're physically printing, designing, printing, distributing everything right there. And obviously you're in there in the trenches every day doing it.
Yep. Probably within the next half a year, I'm probably going to step away from some of the screen printing. Alex, who's a great employee of ours, has really taken a lot of the screen printing on his shoulders in the past year, which is great. But yeah, it's everything, every day, UPS, FedEx, here's the stuff, we create the art here, we burn the art here, print it, package it, ship it. The only thing we don't do here is laser cutting and and stitching. We have the hats stitched locally in Biddeford. We have a local artist who does bracelets.
Okay.
But so to answer your question, in 2 or 3 more years, everything needs to be in-house. We'll have, laser cutters, we'll have stitch machines. So we never have to leave this place to produce anything. Everything's here.
That's awesome. I'd have to think there's a lot of clothing lines where you do the design, you create the mock-up, and then you kind of send it somewhere else. And
I did that for years. I did that for years. And I remember I was lucky because, a person who changed my life, my buddy Jeff Sawyer up in Westbrook, Extreme Screen right next to the Westbrook Mill.
Yeah.
God bless him. Jesus, like he was, I don't know how he put up with me. I mean, I would go in there with like 10 shirts and be like, can I get this on this, this on this, and this? And like, I didn't realize how hard and time consuming screen printing was. And he's like, look, he gave me the keys to his whole facility and he goes, here's how you screen print, learn, do your own stuff. I'm not staying here with you till 9 o'clock. And he's like, tomorrow morning, he's like, if you do well and you want to get out of my hair, you can buy the screen press from me.
Yeah.
And start doing it yourself so you can stay away from me.
Yeah.
Jokingly, we're like best friends now. And he gave me an opportunity to learn. And that also helped me financially because, when you go to a screen printer, they have to make money too.
Right.
So now I get direct garment to me and we print it here. Whereas I was wasting tens of thousands of dollars a year on screen printing fees because I didn't have a screen printer.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I tell people too. If you're going to get in the clothing business, try to print your own stuff. It might not be economically or financially feasible in the beginning, but if you get to that point, I mean, yesterday we did live printing in here. We let people pick out blank shirts and what do you want on the shirt? And we would do it right in front of them.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
So it's like, like if you can control your production side, it's the best. I mean, like the first time I ever sent out for shirts, I used a website called Jack Prints, JAK Prints. White t-shirts. We paid $18.99 a shirt plus.
Oh my God.
So our first t-shirts we had to sell for like $35, $40.
Right.
We didn't tell them to size it differently as the shirts went up to 4X.
Okay.
So we had some 4X shirts that had like this little tiny design and then a small way too big. And it's like, that was my first experience with sending off to a screen printer.
Yeah.
Now it's like, if I wanted to put your name on a shirt in 20 minutes, the time it took you to leave and drive here, by the time you get here, I'd have a shirt with your name on it. I could just go and make it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, like that's pretty much the goal, is to bring everything in-house and continue to just do what we do and do it well and have a good time and continue to keep donating money. Other than that, there are no other goals. I mean, I without saying too much, we're in the talks right now to kind of get out of mills and build our own facility.
Cool.
And that will kind of be our dream facility going forward. We want to stay down in this area. We want to make it an experience. We want to have multiple businesses attached to it. It's like a brewery or a coffee shop or something.
Nice.
That will be our forever home. And we're in the process of getting that going right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll probably be in a year or two. But other than that, as far as like just what our goals are, just keep doing what we're doing.
It's a really good taste. I mean, for someone who might be an employee or working for a company to think that for some reason it would be easier or less work to go out and be self-employed. That's a huge misconception because you're literally working around the clock 7 days a week. Like you say, this is like your first second to even stop, all week.
Yeah.
So, man, well, it's awesome. It's been a very cool journey to see, since I first met you, probably 8 or 10 years ago, how things have progressed. I love what you're doing and I'm so happy to be a part of it. Like I said, it's not only does the clothing help me, because it helps, I relate to a lot of this.
Yep.
It's created some cool friendships and some great conversations. So thank you so much. The fact that you're as busy as you are and you took some time out to chat today, I do appreciate it very much. And, wish
I appreciate you, man. I really do. I appreciate everything you've done for me and for asking me to do this. And I hope that you keep doing it. And I hope that you keep, just keep pushing forward and doing it. And I hope everything's amazing in your world. And I can't thank you enough for thinking of me and wearing our stuff and promoting it. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So for those that might be listening or watching, kind of throw out there where people can find, the clothing.
Excuse me, cfcwear.com and then at cfcwear on every social media. Super easy.
Yeah. And even if you went to Google and type in Just a Kid from Maine or Catalyst for Change, it'll all come up there.
Pop right up. Yep.
So awesome, dude. It's been fun. It's been great. I mean, I can think all the way back to when we've had our first radio interview until now. So, from the background, it's been very cool to see the journey. So kudos and congratulations.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, all the best. Thanks again. And take good care. Keep in touch.
All right, man. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks. You too.